We are going to look at home construction in the United States and relate some things to the architectural design of the home that we are doing in Revit. So when we view a framed house before the wall coverings are installed, the building often seems complicated and to some a daunting project. House framing actually consists of several separate projects assembled into one to create the finished home. Taken in that context, house or building framing is not all that difficult. With today's advances in air tools such as framing nailers, you don't even have to have an experienced hammer swinger to frame a house. There are two types of construction: balloon and platform construction. Balloon construction builds two or more floors at the same time. The problem is that they create channels for fire to go through from the basement directly to the top floor. Because of this, it is not used in current construction and stopped around the 30s and 40s, although some houses still have this balloon type construction. The advantage of it, and the reason they did it, it opened up a space for utilities, for plumbing and wiring to go from one floor to the next. So these two methods are used in standard wood house or stick framing, and they have their advantages and their disadvantages. As you can see from the balloon construction, we got 4 corner posts that we have made, and we begin to build the walls all the way to the second floor. And we completely frame in the walls all the way from the second floor, and then halfway up we lay a joist attached to the framing on which we will build the floors. And then we will proceed up to build the house. Here is a picture of it, and you can see that the spacing between the framing goes all the way from even underneath the house all the way up to the attic. So if a fire was to start in the pantry, in the basement, and a furnace, it would quickly spread up the walls all the way to the very top, and the whole house would be engulfed in flame very, very quickly. And being wood construction, wood is already a bad situation for fires. So they no longer use the balloon construction, although the advantage was it opened it up for utilities. But there are other ways around it. So houses today do not use balloon type construction. We prefer to go with what we refer to as platform construction. And there are a lot of advantages to platform construction. Each section of the wall is built on the floor and then lifted up into place. The top of the walls are attached together with a double top plate, and then we will build the roof or the second floor on top of the walls, and the walls are the load-bearing walls, but there's no direct access between the joists from the first floor to the second floor, and that creates a barrier for fires. So we basically build one floor at a time, and then we can use the second floor platform to begin to build the walls for the second floor. And the walls are not extensive enough that we cannot build them laying down and then lift them into place very easily. One of the things that we are going to bring up, and I will bring it up also in the home design that we're doing in Revit is the idea of the foundation of the house. And this is basically the square foot, the load-bearing value of different types of soil per square foot. And at the very bottom we have clay, sandy clay, silty clay, so forth. And it will support only about 1,500 pounds per square foot. But as you go up to sedimentary rock, which is about 4,000 pounds, to bedrock, which is about 12,000 pounds. So the footing width can vary according to the structure, the site, and the conditions. Under codes, generally one-story buildings with footers on undisturbed soil. Now keep in mind the soil has to be undisturbed. In other words, you can't dig it up and then lay it back down again and have loose soil. That's disturbed soil. So we have to have undisturbed soil. The load-bearing values between 1,500 and 4,000 should have a minimum width of 12 inches. Two-story buildings require a minimum width of 16 inches or 15 inches, usually 16, for footings with 1,500 load-bearing volume soil. For 2,000 or soil greater than two-story buildings, you can get away with a 12-inch, but generally they go 16-inch. Footings should extend to a minimum depth of 12 inches below previously undisturbed soil. Footing also must be extended at least 12 inches below the frost line, the depth in which the ground freezes in the wintertime, or it must be, if not, must be frost protected. So here is a sample of wood frame construction. We have the foundation at the very bottom, which is probably 12 or 16 inches wide and about a foot thick. And the construction we're going to do in our Revit project is going to be 16 inches wide, 1 inch thick. And then we're going to put a block wall on top of that and then begin building the flooring. So that would be the first thing you do, is to establish the first floor. It begins by putting the header joists on the sides and laying the joist across this span, which generally a maximum span with wood construction like this is 16 feet. You can't really find lumber greater than that unless it's fabricated. But you could put a wall in the middle or a foundation in the middle, as in this case a pier post, which is what we're going to do. We're going to actually have a frame, a foundation in the middle of the house we're going to build. So it's going to have a square foundation with another foundation going through the middle, and there's going to be the supporting walls for the joist, the floor joist. And then on top of the floor joist, you put a subflooring, which is usually some type of plywood. And then the wood flooring would be on top of the subflooring, which would be whatever you desire to be on the surface, whether it's pine, whether it's oak, or whether it's some other material that will be on top. This is a picture of the section between the first floor and the second floor, and you can see the joist underneath. If I was to draw some marks in here, this space in here, if a fire was to start, it would hit these 2x4s and would not be able to transfer up through into the second floor. So that is the reason for the platform type construction. And the joists extend all the way over to sit on the first floor. And we put a double plate, 2x4s in there. One 2x4 when we're framing it, another one to tie the walls together. And the second floor, again, is going to have a subflooring and then some type of final finish flooring on top of that. And the studs are going to be the vertical beams, the vertical 2x4s that go from the floor up. So here we have the concrete, and we're laying a sill plate on there and then starting to put the header joist in there and attaching it. And then we proceed by putting the joist running across between the two header joists. And we usually almost always use 16 inches on center. We use 16 inches measuring from center to center so that the plywood that comes in 8-foot lengths the end of it would always rest on a joist. You never want the end of the plywood hanging off of a joist. The ends of the plywood always have to rest on a joist. That's why we go with 16 inches on center. Also, the joists being vertical like that can have a tendency to bow or bend or fold in. And so in order to prevent that, we install this metal bracing, or sometimes it's wood, to brace points in between there to keep the joist vertical. So here is an example of the flooring being built. This is actually the second floor. You can see the first floor is already complete and is covered by the sheathing and on the bottom. So bridging involves placing short pieces of material perpendicular between the joists to stabilize them, to install standard metal bridges or braces to keep the joists from moving apart. And you can see them kind of spaced in there farther down as you look. Notice again the plywood, the ends of the plywood always end on a joist. They always end on a joist. And the next one must sit on the joist as well. That's why we always measure from center to center 16 inches, which is easily divided into 96, which is the size of a piece of plywood. So then you have the 2x4 studs that go from the bottom to the top. At the very bottom here, we have the bottom plate that sits on the foundation. And we have at the very top a top plate that sits on the above the studs. And we will add another top plate on top of this, making it 2 to tie the walls together. And the entire height is going to be 8 feet from the bottom of the bottom plate to the very top of the top plate. Notice you also see a header in here over a window. The bottom plate is going to be anchored to the foundation by bolts. The walls are built laying down, and then after they are built, they will be lifted up into place. Again, we have the nomenclature here that we see, the header right here. This stud right here is referred to as a jack stud, which supports the header. The header rests on the jack stud. To the other side, we have the king stud, which goes all the way to the top. The same is true for this header of the window. Every time there's an opening, there must be a header to support the load that is being put down here. So on the inside of the windows, we have the jack stud. And on the outside of the window, we have what we refer to as the king stud. Also could be referred to as trimmer studs, depending on who's communicating this. And they're always measured apart 16 inches on center for the same reason, because not plywood, but gypsum board or plywood for the outside, gypsum board, sheetrock always come in 8 and 12 foot lengths, and the 16 inches will divide evenly into it. So in the construction, you need to make sure the sheetrock, the gypsum board, the wall board, whatever you want to call it, always ends on the stud and always begins on a stud. The space between them, the header, the larger the space, the larger the header will have to be. Here is an example of a header. It's used. In this case, it's using 2x10s, 2 of them on each side, plus some spacers to account for the 3.5 width of the stud, and they will be placed on top of the windows. So this is a header that would go over the window, and the trimmer stud, the header is going to sit on the trimmer or the jack stud. And underneath the sill, which is right here, this is the sill right here, the bottom of the window sill plate, and underneath that we will have what we refer to as cripple studs underneath there. So this is an example of the top of the wall where we have built 2 walls. And this is the top plate right here. And this is the top plate of the other wall. And the mouse is really messing up here. But the second top plate is going to come down here and tie the walls together. And thus you can kind of join the walls together and give them support for each other. And whenever there is a corner, you're going to have to put quite a few studs in there in order to create a space in which to attach the sheetrock. So I have to have a space here to attach the sheetrock going in this direction, and I have to have one here to attach the sheetrock running in this direction. And the same is on all sides. This is what the framing of the house can look like as it's going up. And it does definitely look quite complicated, but keep in mind it's built piece by piece and constructed accordingly. Interior, you can see where the openings are for doors. Notice in this situation there is not a header, and that's because that's not really a load-bearing wall. When you have a load-bearing wall, then you must have a header on there. There is another example of a framing of the house.